Are we ready? Should we go ahead and get started? It looks like it's just a few minutes after 10. Hopefully people will get logged on as I get started here. Uh, so I want to start off by welcoming everyone to our Leadership Hustle. As we attempt to navigate through these extraordinary times, we don't always know what we should do, but we do know it's our responsibility to move our organizations forward. So today we're going to explore steps with our local HR leaders to see the steps that they have taken to build culture and trust despite the pandemic. And really, I'm really curious on things that they've learned throughout this process as well. So I am Michelle Hill. I'm from Revela, and I'll be the moderator for today. I also have Lana Smart with us, and she's going to be helping us out by managing the chat. So if you have questions, and she'll be entering some things in there, but if you have questions throughout the discussion today, please go ahead and put it in the chat, and she will get back to you with some answers. And if you have a question that you'd like directed to the panelists, at the very end, kind of depending on time, we will pull a couple questions to put out there as well. One other thing I want to let the group know is that today's discussion is being recorded, and we will have it posted on our YouTube site later today. So if you have a chance or don't get a chance to watch the whole thing, or you have someone you know that wanted to attend but wasn't able to, please go ahead and share that with them. Other thing before we get started is I want to thank Haram for partnering with Revela today. This gives us an opportunity for leaders in our community to all come together and really have that possibility to learn how we can reinvent our workplaces from what it was once really familiar to this new normal. Not for sure how many news we're going to have. So let me get started today with introducing the panel, and then we'll get into the questions, which I know that's why you all are here. First, I've got Angela Avis. She is the Chief Talent Management Officer at TS Banking Group. We've got Katie Mullen, Vice President of Human Resources at Farm Credit Services of America. We've got Ashley Albers, Human Resource Manager at Norium Cold Storage. We got Mike Bajanski, Vice President of Human Resources at Finley Engineering, and Andrew Fredrickson with Revela, Organizational Expert. So perfect. Thank you again for joining us, everyone. And the first question I have for you guys, and let me go ahead and Ashley, I know you've kind of been in the trenches with your business, and the concept of working remote really wasn't something that you guys had to tackle. You had a different one. During these times of uncertainty, what would you say has been the greatest lesson that you guys have learned from this transition?
The biggest thing that I think we can take away from it is that we cannot underestimate the resiliency of our teams. They will get through just about anything with us as long as we are honest with them and we stay in front of the information that we have for them. And we never miss an opportunity to say, hey, this is what we're going to do for now until we get new guidance from the CDC or from the local health departments. As long as we're letting them know, hey, this is why we're making a change, they'll do anything we need them to do, which has been really refreshing. And it reminds us how great our team really is. Sometimes you forget that when you're in the hustle and bustle of your normal day, but watching our teams rise to the occasion over the last few months has really been a big learning lesson for a lot of our managers.
God, that's gotta feel good. Those are those little things you gotta celebrate, right?
Yeah.
That's good. So Katie, I know you have a lot of locations and a lot of people. So when thinking about when this all started, what would you say might be the best lesson that you guys have learned so far from this situation?
One of the greatest lessons is plan ahead. And we've had a really strong business continuity program and plan, but it's different when you have to execute on that. And so we've had a group of individuals that have been working on two things, and we've stayed focused on two things. That is the health and safety of our teammates and our customers, and business continuity. And so as a group, we've really worked at honing in on those are our objectives. We're going to communicate those objectives over and over, and we're going to make decisions based on those objectives. So for me, the biggest lesson is all of that planning, it really helped, but there is nothing like a real drill, and we are learning every day.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, because a lot of questions that come at us every day, and a big piece, when we're trying to respond is, well, what have you been doing to up to today, right? Because the things that you're doing every day when the stress isn't quite so high, those things add up when a situation occurs, right? And this is something that we really couldn't plan for, and I think that happens a lot in our lives, and in business. There's things that happen, so that is a good.
I think when you mix in what's going on in the home too, with families and school and childcare, this is very different than just business continuity, right? So we've tried to maintain a level of compassion with our communication and say to our teammates, we understand. We're understanding that some of you can't contribute at the level you would if you were in the office. Contribute what you can, take care of yourself and your families, and we'll get through this.
What a message. That is a great message for people to hear, especially in times when it's so uncertain and scary for everyone in all different ways, business and personally, right? So that is great. Mike, what would you say, from working with your team, what is something that maybe you've seen them start doing differently that maybe you guys should consider continuing to do that as you move forward?
Well, I want to build on something that Katie said. We were prepared from a continuity perspective, but a pandemic plan, we were not prepared for that. We were prepared for, like, if one of our buildings was knocked down by a tornado or burned up or whatever, but we were not prepared. I was not prepared. So it was spending a lot of time doing Google searches. Mr. Google was very helpful. And I put a pandemic plan together on the fly. It was unbelievable. I think, and what Ashley said about how employees are pretty resilient and pretty accepting. We have about 200 employees. I think we had one employee who freaked out about this and didn't want to come into the office and those kinds of things. And early on, we had a couple potential exposures, so we had to deal with that. And I think the thing that we learned from this is just being honest. And here's the deal. We're not sure what we should do, but we're going to find out by calling the health officials or the attorney, and we're just kind of fly by the seat of our pants to make the right decisions. And everybody has really stepped up. We're considered essential services, so business has been usual. Actually, business has been busier for us. So we're pretty fortunate with that, and hadn't had to have furloughs or any of that. The one employee who just freaked out and didn't want to come into work, we gave her a chance to work from home, and that didn't work from a technology perspective. And we let her resign, and we didn't fight her unemployment, and it just worked out best for everybody. But that's kind of what we learned.
Good. Well, I saw a little comment in chat. Mr. Google was a kind of a just now. Someone really liked you called Google Mr. Google, so that was kind of a takeaway someone had. If Angie, kind of looking at, we believe there's no right way to navigate through something like this. I mean, it's like Mike, you were describing. Let's Google it. Let's figure out what let's go to our resources, right? Can you share with our listeners one thing that you have focused on with your communication that has helped reduce people's insecurities through this pandemic?
Absolutely. Again, I think it's reassuring that there's a lot of the same messages happening between this group, and I'm sure many of those that are listening to us right now, where we're all human. And what's really been enlightening is that we're going through the same things that all of our employees are going through. I have 3 kids at home that we've had to continue with the education and wearing multiple hats, right? So it's really getting down on every employee's level. Initially, we started out with, okay, how can we help these people? What are some big strategy pieces that we can really lay over? And the struggle was, every case is so different. And so we honed in our communication, being extremely flexible, extremely transparent. As Ashley and Katie and Mike have already said, it's like, we don't know everything. We don't have all of the answers. This has never happened before. We were prepared for certain aspects of that. And for a community bank, we were lucky and blessed to be able to have invested a lot of money into technology, which is somewhat out of the norm for the industry. So we were extremely resilient. We have several core principles that we live by, resiliency being one of them, agility being another. And our teams have really shown up in that way. And so again, back to communication. We increased communication to a weekly reoccurrence. Josh Kuta, our CEO, has done videos. We pair that with emails. We kind of elevated the need to open up. We utilize Paylocity for our HR system, and they have a piece that's called Community. And that's like an internal social media. And we said, you know what, now's the time. We need to initiate this. It was fairly easy. So that is engaging for all of our employees to be able to do, so that you can somewhat create that togetherness, even though we're all in our own little worlds. So being able to easily adopt that technology has been extremely key. It feels weird. We're all out of what we've always known. And so we've had to kind of pick ourselves back up and say, okay, what can we do instead of what we can't do anymore, right? So what can we do in this space? How can I impact others? And trying to ask those questions and show up every day in the spaces that we can show up in.
Good.
That's helped us.
Well, and that technology piece, I think that, that's really pushed a lot of us a little bit outside of our comfort zones, and it's made us do things that, oh, I don't have time for it, or I'll do it later, we push it off. And, I believe a lot of people are now getting comfortable, right, with the different technology that's available to us and how we can be successful in what we do every day. And it's kind of curious, just, as we move forward with the return to work, which a lot of things in the Midwest are starting to open up, or it's like every week something new is opening, or multiple things, right? And then you're looking at, okay, well, about the businesses then, the office spaces, right? And that the piece of that communication, I think right now, is so critical on keeping people in the know of what's happening and using this technology in multiple ways to get the messages out there of what we're doing. This is our plan. How are you feeling? So, Andrea, yes.
So as we've talked to some of the different HR professionals and the leaders within organizations, when we talk about the communication, there were points in times where things were changing so fast, sometimes minute to minute versus just day to day or week to week. And so keeping people up to date was really important, and we got that. But there also is getting to the point where things aren't changing as fast. And so now that things aren't changing as fast, people have reduced the kinds of communication that, or the frequency of communication. And so I challenge people to not let up on the accelerator of communication too much yet, because things still are changing. And even if they're not changing, make sure you're communicating nothing has changed, right? And that otherwise they make up stories in our heads, that, well, this is what's going on, or are they going to start doing this? Or are they going to start doing that? Keep a good cadence of communication and let them tell you when enough's enough. Okay. Otherwise they'll start making up more stories. So just wanted to add that as far as the communication, whether it's using technology or videos or anything like that.
No, that is a great reminder, Andrew, because I think we all kind of, it's like we're driving. When we're driving, if people around us are driving faster, we might tend to drive a little faster, some of us faster than others. And then if we, if everyone's kind of slowing down, we all slow down a little bit. And as leaders in the organization, that was spot on, Andrea. Thank you for bringing that up, because we need to keep our foot on that accelerator, right? When it comes to the communication and keeping people in the know and bigger picture of what we do know and what it's going to look like. And, kind of thinking about what it might look like. I know everyone's kind of got a little different scenarios where, working in the trenches, the, different facilities being open versus the working remote. And, you know, Katie, you come to mind right now in the sense of having a lot of remote people. And I know with that transition of looking at, you know, opening up the office spaces, opening up and bringing the people back in. What precautions, what are some of those conversations that you and your team have been having to create this, one, the physical safety, right? That we've got that pillar that we need to make sure our people are safe when they come back, but then the psychological safety. Can you share with us a couple things that you guys have been talking about and maybe even been doing to prepare for that?
Sure, we have literally spent hours talking about this to the point where I think our little group gets fatigued at all the options. Certainly, first and foremost is we probably have 95% of our workforce working remote, and that we did that on a dime. And I'm really proud of the organization. We were ready for that. What we weren't ready for are the things like, are we going to continue to hire people? And how do we onboard people? And how do we serve our customers? So now that we're talking about a return, that will certainly be in phases. We do not want everyone coming back on day one. Honestly, there's a large, probably population of people who aren't ready. They're still trying to work things out with home. There's still a lot of fear. So our approach first is, how do we get the physical environment ready? We're going to offer masks. We may require masks. We're having a lot of conversation back and forth about that. And frankly, you all understand there's some contention there. People have strong feelings about wearing masks one way or another. So we're talking through that. We have deep sanitization going on. We have since this started. We're social distancing. We're going to really create a campaign, if you will, around, here are the things that we need you to do. We need you to social distance. We need you to sanitize work areas. We need no more than 50% of you in a meeting room at a time. And so we're going to create a welcome back that includes those educational materials that say, here's what we want everyone to do to remain safe. You know, we've talked about temperature taking. That doesn't seem to make sense. So we're going to offer those things to our teammates. As far as who's coming back when, that date still is a moving target. But what I do know is it'll be a certain percentage of the workforce. We'll probably start with volunteers, who's able and ready and willing to come back. And then we will grow on that. So the percentage will grow, and we'll continue to kind of create scenarios so that feels safe for everybody. As far as psychological safety, you know, there's customer interactions. There's this idea of trust, you know, and it's a different kind of trust. Do I trust that you're healthy? Think about that as kind of a strange question now that we have, is, do I trust that you haven't been exposed, my coworkers? So we'll continue to build on that. And we have to be ready for a second phase of this. And we've talked a lot about that. You know, they anticipate that we will have another phase of probably high exposure and positive testing. We don't know. So how do we be ready for that? If we need to go back to kind of this next normal of remote work, we'll do that. But right now, we probably have more questions than answers.
Yeah. You know, when I'm glad you brought up that you're even planning for that next, at least what's being shared, the beliefs that people have, right? What they're projecting. Because you do have to be proactive in how you bring people back and what that looks like just for that exposure purpose just in itself, right? So all those things are really critical. And I really appreciate the fact that you worded it as a campaign. So I believe a lot of people think about marketing to your potential customers, right? That's a marketing campaign. And I think oftentimes we miss this huge opportunity to do a campaign for our internal customers, our people, what make us who we are, and putting a plan together that educates them in multiple different ways of getting out, anything from how you utilizing social media to getting notes, messages out via email, via, your Zoom. Angela, you brought up that Josh was doing the videos, and, just using all different avenues that we have, but being very intentional and using that as these are the things that we're doing, and educating your people. And also you can educate your customers and be proud. These are the things that we've been doing to protect our people. And that's that social media piece. I think it can be valuable for both your internal and external customers. So
there are some really good resources out there. Cushman and Wakefield has some great content if you haven't seen it. The Chamber just came out with phased return plans. So the other thing I would just say is, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you don't have the time and resources, utilize those great resources that companies are providing out there.
Yes. And who was the first one that you said was a great resource?
Cushman and Wakefield.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure the audience had heard that, if they wanted to jot that down. So good. Well, and Ashley, what would you say, just because you're dynamic, you're still in the trenches, right? What are, when you're looking at creating that psychological and physical safety, what would be a couple, 2 key things that you think you guys have been doing through this process?
I think that the biggest thing we've been doing is that physical safety for our teams creates the psychological safety for our teams. So when they see us doing things to protect their physical safety, they know that we're doing everything we can to take care of them, and that helps them be put at ease that it's okay to be at work. So we have put up sanitizer stations absolutely everywhere, and we're going through hand sanitizer like Kool-Aid the rail. I mean, these stations that would usually be fine for 3 months, we're replacing them like every week. So people are using it, which is great. We've started requiring masks in all areas where we can't have social distance. So some of our production lines, that sort of thing, even some of our warehouses, we've been having masks required or just available. The biggest thing that we did that we were nervous about, but that ended up being a huge positive for our employees, is we installed thermal imaging cameras at all of our entrances. So it was a big investment, and we were concerned that our employees might see that as an overstep into their personal information a little bit. But the feedback that we got from them was, thank you, we wanted this. I want to know that there's not somebody in here that has a fever. Thank you. And we made the investment in actually doing the cameras because we were looking at having nurses from our local hospitals come out and do temperatures, because I'm not a medical professional. I shouldn't be the one telling you to go home. And because we work so closely with the food industry, a lot of our customers were doing this. So we just knew that this is going to be the wave of our future. This will be one thing that stays after the pandemic is over, because the next time a pandemic comes along in 8 or 10 years, that's going to be the expectation. So we want to be ready for it. But I get a little email picture of anybody that has a little bit of a high temperature. Usually it's because they were wearing a black hat outside at break time and the sun warmed up their head. But we go out and we do a verification check and we make sure, and that makes our employees feel safe. And it makes them feel safe that every truck driver that comes in is checked as well. So along with all of the communication, we've done appreciation bonuses, we've done appreciation lunches. We've really, really leveraged our social media for our employees. It's one thing that we've always known. We've always known that our employees are essential. We've always known how great they are. I don't think that they realized how critical what they do every day really is, especially our entry-level warehouse that is packaging food. They're on a production line. They didn't realize how critical they are to their communities and to their countries. And so we've really taken the opportunity to drive that home. And I certainly hope that that's something that stays after this is over. Something that I think that we as a company can do better all the time, not just during crisis.
Yes, I would agree. And lots of great insights. Thank you for sharing some of the things that you guys have been doing. So, Angela, I'm thinking of the banking industry, and I know TS Banking Group, you guys are always like ahead of the game when it comes to technology and so forth. But I'm curious, with the pandemic, how will this reshape your organization? what impact will that have moving forward with what it might look like?
Absolutely. With communication, with our mindsets, with our approach, something that has been a repeated message since day one, and even before that, but even more emphasis that we've continued to lead from, is something that comes from out of Jim Collins. It's called the Stockdale Paradox. He talks about that in his book, Good to Great. And what the Stockdale Paradox talks about is leading with having faith, but being disciplined to approach the brutal facts. And so not being overly optimistic, but also not living in the pessimistic, oh my gosh, we got to lock down absolutely everything. And so having a healthy balance between that, we've actually been able to dig in and figure out what opportunities, back to your question of reshaping our organization into the future. We've always known that the physical branch of a bank is slowly or quickly dwindling, and this has sped up that strategy, right? So we have the mobile banking, we have the online banking and things like that, but into the future, our brains and our teams, back to kind of what Ashley said, what's been absolutely amazing is we've had these core principles, we've had these foundational understandings of who we are as a company, but through and through, it's become our reality. And that's kind of a weird thing to say because it's always been our reality, but our employees feel it and see it. And that's so powerful. Back to, again, the impact that Ashley's group is having on the community, and the level of real impact that our group has had on the community as well is so empowering and enlightening and energizing to say, what can we do now? And those geographic boundaries or perimeters that used to exist, it's like we have entities in North Dakota and Illinois. Mm-hmm. Now that's all been level playing field. Like the opportunities are endless as far as what can we do and how can we serve our clients into the future, but also how can we operate internally as an employee team, and where are we going? So those types of thoughts and process are definitely going to reshape us into the future of where can we serve now that we are so able to move forward in technology, and that those physical borders are no longer kind of stymieing or a block in our mind of, well, yeah, but that would be nice. But it's like, no, now we can break through that. So that's been powerful.
Well, and Angela, I heard you talk, heard you say about the brick and mortar, right? So just kind of taking this to your people and people that maybe are working remote. And Mike, I'm going to come to you on this one next, but I'm going to start with Angela real quick, but kind of looking at what might look different with your workforce. And the ones that maybe are working remote, will they come back? Are you looking at any changes, or is that something that you guys are considering for the future?
We're having those conversations, kind of like Kelly. It can change by the hour at times, it feels like. We in the nearer term, we're continuing to hold. So our drive-ups have been open, so they're serving clients through the drive-ups. But naturally, it's been more online chat, phone, online account opening. We've had all of these initiatives or opportunities available for a while, but seeing the emphasis and then actually seeing the employees themselves delivering it through these channels, solidifying their ability to do so, has really also continued to change that mindset of what is possible. Now, when we talk about, do we need this branch, right? We've had some of those conversations of like, wow, how should this branch look? It's coming from more of a place of what is the strategy behind the branch versus like, well, we just have this branch here now existing. And we do really well coming from that place, but I think it's even more emphasized deeper into the organization at different levels. So that conversation always has to be carefully had, approached, slow, methodical. We do not want to lay off people. That is not the goal. Yes, we're interested in wanting to go down the path of efficiencies, but it's more of reskilling our employees versus, oh, we're just going to cut them out now that maybe we don't have to have the level of branch teams that we used to have. So it's repurposing, moving around, offering and building, growing, developing new skill sets into what we see into the future. So as far as our workforce, I think the biggest realization, even for myself being in HR, talent management, and sometimes I still have a gap. How do I keep a pulse on the organization when all of those drive-bys that used to kind of be annoying and inappropriate, how much value those drive-bys actually did have and how much communication actually existed in that form. So it's like, how do we have drive-bys intentionally, right? Almost. So I think a lot of our team members have realized that we can pretty much operate from anywhere. We don't have an answer yet to what that looks like into the future, but what we're thinking is it could be a lot more flexible than what we've even been offering up to this point. Maybe it's part-time home, part-time office. We don't have to serve our clients directly out of a branch. We're going to them, we're meeting them via Zoom, we're chatting with them online. So what used to be all of these different standardized channels, it's all intermingled, and it's like, what if, right? On a much grander scale than ever before.
Yes. Well, and Mike, I know you had mentioned earlier that you guys have been busy, and just kind of, I guess, going back to that first question I had for Angela, just kind of thinking of what's taken place. Do you see it changing, reshaping Finley, the way the structure, the organization, how you guys work, how you guys get things done? Do you see any changes that are maybe you're doing now that is something that might be different as you guys move forward?
Yeah, not so much. I believe that I have a number of leaders in the organization that I call, I'll try to be nice about this, control freaks. They're engineers, so they like to be in control of things, right? And I think now that some additional people have been able to work from home and they've proven that they can get the work done, then these principals these control freaks will be a little bit more flexible. Probably 60% of our associates work remotely at any point in time, so it hasn't been that much of an impact on us. I think, and our offices were large enough that we could do the social distancing, and we have old-fashioned cubicles, and so it was safe to allow people to come in to work. And it goes back to, if somebody didn't feel comfortable, then they work from home if you can. Some of the challenge from a technology perspective is some of the design files that have to be shared are so large that it's too hard to send them back and forth. So, and what we're hopeful, since we work in what's called tier 3 communication entities and power entities, we're hopeful that the federal government will realize that we talk about the digital divide, and from our, there's definition of digital divide can be a lot of different things. It's, poor people don't have access to internet, and we work in rural America, so there's been this challenge from an educational perspective. People don't have fast enough internet. So we're hopeful that some money will be thrown into that space so that we'll continue to be busy again. When, back in 2008, 2009, during the Great Recession and the stimulus money was distributed, we almost doubled our business because our clients had much more money to spend on communication infrastructure. So I don't think it's going to have a significant impact on us. I think some people will choose to work from home a little bit more, maybe 1 day a week or 2 days a week, but our folks like to get together, collaborate on these design projects. So anyway, not a whole lot of impact for us.
Gotcha. No, and I like to hear that appreciation for the collaboration, coming together and working together, because there is that component that makes us successful. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. Hey, and Andrew, what's some insights that you have from working with our clients?
Well, as you talk about, reshaping the future of our organizations, and the fact that what we're doing is we're building trust. We may have to upskill, as Angela said, some of our leaders, because they're used to the face-to-face opportunities. And, there are still some folks out there that believe if you're sitting at a desk that you're busy or productive, and neither one of those may be true, right? And so we talk, as Mike was talking about, our control freaks, we're going to have to learn to help people understand what productivity is, and that we have to trust on outcomes, not necessarily recipes that we have to follow. We have to create ways that we have those, Angie, she uses the term drive-by, because we talk about drive-bys, these collaborations, these collisions that we have, and that are so important. And how do we help those, I'm going to say veteran or mature leaders, change how they manage or lead, and how do we upskill the others and help them become great managers and leaders, as opposed to micromanagers and control freaks. And I think that's a big deal that's even more emphasized when you have people who are working not right beside you. And working not right beside you is not a new thing. We have people that work in a different state or a different floor, or just a different location, and this isn't that much different. So these things of building trust and adjusting for this next season or this new future really are some of the things that we really should be doing. They're foundational anyway, but it's really highlighting those cracks in our system that we need to adjust for. So I think we need to challenge ourselves, and is it really that new, or were we just not doing it very well?
Yes, and that's just that whole reskilling and the discussions regarding our leadership skills, our management, and looking at what do we need to do to challenge ourselves. Great points that you brought up there, Andrea. And I'm gonna one more question for you, since we've got you talking. When we think about organizations, because right now there's a large group of companies that are struggling financially, and we're hanging on, but it's a struggle sometimes. What would be a couple suggestions on how do we build trust, but there's no financial resources? That you don't need to have any, and I know we have a strong belief there's a lot of things we can do. That's why I'm asking you that question, because financial isn't always the way to build them, right? I know, Ashley, you brought up some great things that you guys are doing to reward people for working in the front lines right now, on that financial component, which is, I'm sure, greatly appreciated. But when we talk about, what if I don't have the financial ability right now to provide anything addition, or maybe what if we've had to furlough people and so forth? What are some things that we can do to build trust that will help as we continue to move forward, and when we all do come back together, that it's not as difficult to come back together?
First and foremost, those people that have high emotional intelligence and have the ability to recognize when they need to be empathetic is key. So the difference between empathy and sympathy, it's like, I don't feel sorry for, it's more I can relate, or how can I help you, or I recognize that you're going through these circumstances. What are our realities, and how do I communicate those realities? So empathy is like the filter that I'm looking through on all of this. I believe that regardless of anything, communication has a high price if we don't use it, but it costs us nothing to implement. So making sure that people, as I said earlier, that the messages are clear, that we're talking about the truth, that we're being transparent, and that we're letting people know the nature of what's going on with our business. If if our clients are struggling, we're saying this is going to have an impact, and what do we need to do? We can't sugarcoat things too much, but we can't say our business is down 45%, but it's not going to cost us any of our jobs. Like, that's not real, right? We may have to do some things differently, or find a different product or service to sell to compensate for that, or come together and rally around something. So communication is huge. I think that, when we talk about trust, it's about the integrity of what we do, that we do what we say we're going to do. And if we're going to change, tell them why we have to change that maybe have more information. We make decisions at the time with the best information that we have, but that doesn't mean we have all of it, right? And so letting people know, here's what we know today, here's what we're going to be doing, here's why we're doing this. Tomorrow it may change, so be prepared for the change, but recognizing we're doing the best we can in this. And I think the third is making sure that the people are in the roles that they can contribute the best. So, people ask people questions like, why is this person doing that? We may have a hidden skill that we aren't using for somebody. And how do we leverage that? Giving people the positions and the roles so people understand, oh, I know why Ashley is doing this, because she's the person that's responsible for that. She's got this skill, she's got this experience. Letting people know that, the behaviors and the capabilities of people are so important right now that they need to step up and to deliver, and recognize when people are doing that adds to this trust. I mean, we can list all the reasons why people don't trust things, but it's really about showcasing things, being upfront about things, being truthful about things, and making sure that we're following through and doing exactly what we say.
Well, and thank you, Andrea. And, Katie, I want to hop back up to you real quick. You had mentioned compassion, and that is just a powerful word for us. So when thinking about that building trust that doesn't cost us anything, right? Compassion stands out. What else can you share with our listeners? Some things that you guys have been doing, maybe even before all this, that's maybe set that foundation to build trust as we work through this.
I want to tag on to something that Andrea said, and it was great, and I believe all of it. And what was going through my mind when you talk about fully utilizing technology and communicating, we're all HR professionals, and I'm just sitting here thinking it starts with us and our teams. So it's been really important for me that my team can lead the way on the full utilization of technology and how we collaborate and how we've done that. And they have done a phenomenal job, because it's one thing for us to tell people, it's another for people to see us doing it. And that's really an important key to really saying, I'm not just talking, I'm walking the talk, and here's why it's so great for my team. So I think that's really important. In terms of the building the trust, we've been really transparent. And I know that's an overused term, but I think we've been really transparent about we want to do the right thing here. And sometimes we don't even know what that is from minute to minute. Now, things have slowed down and it's not really as critical as it was. But the other part that felt so important to me, and probably, where I felt we needed to take the lead, is you're also dealing with personal, confidential information. And so when we went to make a decision, there were times I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. And here's why. Here's how we can do it. But we need to protect people, because it's not just our view, but it's how, as an employee, am I going to feel about that? How do I feel about sharing that information with you? And how do we balance that with keeping people safe? And there's certain things we just need to know. If you're getting COVID testing and you've been exposed, we're going to ask you to work from home. Your teammates are going to know that. But what we've promised is we're not sharing any more than this person's working from home. And so I think what you've got to do is you have part of that trust is balancing personal information and my personal situation with the greater good of your organization, and in a way that you can maintain respect, maintain confidentiality, but also increase confidence that, you know, my organization is looking out for me as much as they are looking out for the organization.
Yeah, so creating that feeling that the organizations, they're taking care of us, right? That they're doing all the work to figure out what they need to do to help us be safe. And that's one thing, as I've been having conversations with human resource, the you know, people that are wearing, you know, in those roles, you guys, this is like the time that it is like, whoo, powerful, and stepping up, and what have we been talking about with our team, and how we've been developing them, and are we doing what we said, and having those conversations with our people before all of this, that is that foundation on that trust, and how we're building it to continue to move forward.
There have been moments that have been raw and real. And, you know, an example is we're having a team meeting, and someone's child needs them, and they aren't going away, and they're upset, and, you know, the employee's nervous and they're embarrassed. And, you know, those are raw and real times. And I've just encouraged everyone, this is your life. It's okay. You do what you need to do to take care of your family. But it's okay too. If your child wants to sit on your lap during a Zoom meeting, it's okay. This is all melded together, and we're not going to separate it. We may never separate it again like it was. But I think being human and letting your team, as well as a leader, let your team see you be human and vulnerable during this time, it goes a long way. You know, we as leaders were kind of taught to be strong and to kind of show up every day. Well, frankly, that hasn't been real possible a couple of times during this for people. And it's okay, because when you show your humanness, your teammates, your employees feel like it's safe for them to show the same.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you. You know, Angela, just real quick, what would be one thing that maybe we can add to that topic of trust?
Oh, something that hasn't been said. Again, I think the most important thing to build trust in any relationship is being a really good friend, being a supporter, being genuine. Again, we're all going through the same thing that every employee is going through. You can easily, you know, I mean, for the most part, we all have different circumstances, but it's like, I'm human. I'm feeling those same things at different times, and I'm going to be here to serve you really well. Whatever that is, I want to help come to us. Again, you know, back what Katie was saying, talent management, HR, we are the supporters of the organization. I always say, we're kind of like the parents. Like, we want to take care of our children. Sometimes they act like children, let's be honest. But we want to be there to support them. And it does. It means, if it's back to what Andrea was saying, it's more about what you're accomplishing and less about the hours you're putting in, right? And that's that sort of action of saying, it's okay. We get it. We get it. Take the time off, have a mental break, go take a nap during the day, because as long as you're getting your stuff done, that's what matters right now. And it is a complete, you know, 180 of mindset from, especially, again, community banking is very traditional. I can relate to Mike when he says engineers are kind of micromanagers and control freaks. Lenders are too. Bankers are. They like their rules and regulations and black and white. And we're in a world that's not black and white right now, right? The rules went out the door. So all we can do is show up and say, what do you need? How can we help? We'll make it through. We're here for you.
Yes. And, you know, even looking internally, then that belief, that mindset, that starts with you guys, right? And then having that ripple effect out to all the managers and supervisors as that goes down, and just working through their belief system as well, because it's difficult, especially if you've been that individual who you're working closely with your people and you see them working. Now I don't see them, for those remote workers. And it's those conversations with them that is helping them kind of shift that belief so they can believe in their people. They can give trust to their people, because to me, I think that's a huge piece. As managers, we've got to give that trust, believe we've, explained those expectations, and we're there, we're checking in, we're asking, if they have questions, but we got to believe they're going to do what they need to do to get it done when that works for them. Yes, Mike.
So I want to build on something that Katie said about, being real. So employees working remotely, sometimes, we understand the term high payoff activities, right? We learned that through Revela and Lana when she did our high potential program a couple of years ago. And helping them stay focused on those high payoff activities, and acknowledging that, yeah, I get distracted too, and I want to do a load of laundry, or I want to vacuum, or I want to unload the dishwasher, and that's okay. Or I want to take a nap after I'm watching the news at noon, and just being real that way and say, yeah, I understand, and how can I help you be more focused on those high payoff activities? Anyway. Thanks, Katie, for sharing that.
I was just thinking that same line. So thank you for going there, Mike. Really quick. I know we're running low on time, but that was one of the things I had notated, is being as strategic as you can be. Something that, Andrea and the Revela group and other executive coaches have really laid over us as a team is you don't motivate people through crisis. You lead them, right? And so I know something, I was in shock when all of this happened. We're all people. That's why we do what we do. And I had to pick myself up, and I heard develop strategy, execution, and effectiveness over efficiencies. And what I've, kind of told our leaders and our team specifically, that strategy could be today. What am I doing today? What's my very next step today, this week, this month? Because when we have that plan, whether the plan is in the next hour or over the next quarter, that's what we can lean on when everything else is chaos, right? We can say, okay, what do I need to accomplish today? Because accomplishing something feels good. Humanistically, it feels good. And that's where we get our value and our impact. It's like, even if it is, I emptied the dishwasher today, that makes me feel good that I was able to create some sort of value. So really relying on that plan, those high payoff activities, and being able to communicate that really well of where are we at and what are we doing? I think that helps a lot.
Yes, agree. Thank you for piggybacking on that one. Andrew, we are getting really close. I want to get a question from our audience as well, but real quick, can you just give us a couple things in regards to, because our core concept here was trust, right? Give us an idea or a couple steps that people who are leading their people can move forward with.
So, trust is really built by combining consistent behavior or your integrity, your competence, and your compassion. We actually have an assessment that we can help you with that, give that to you. We'll talk about that later. But the point is, those three things make up trust. And those are not things that we should be doing just when things are tough. It should be something that we're working on as part of our culture, so that when times are tough, there's an expectation. Now we have a cadence, and things are moving pretty well. There are questions right now about building trust in, we're changing things. Like, how do we have our summer picnic, or how are we going to have our Christmas and holiday party, or, what are we doing for our team building events? Well, I think the fact that we recognize we still need to create a community, because community is where we create this trust environment. And so we may create new rituals, new things that create just as good or better ways for people to interact. I think about picnics and things like that, where people have to either get babysitters or they have to bring people together, and it takes a lot of time, and you get to run into people. But look at the number of people on this call right now that we can see. And I've been on conversations through video that, like, oh, I didn't know that person looked like that. And now I put a face and a name, and I can do some things together. We can do some things to create trust, because now we can put faces and names, or we can go into small breakout groups and do things. But I really think it's going back to communicate often, regardless of whether there's something new or not, to being transparent, to be empathetic, show confidence. You know, people are looking for, you know, your strength. Even when you're struggling, they're still looking for your strength. But I blend it with your humanity. You know, I love when Katie said, you know, sometimes you got a kid that just needs to sit on your lap, or we see the dog chasing the cat through the back of this room, or, you know, our humanity is really there. And which is, it creates that transparency. And just be there to listen and understand that what's going on is actually a really good thing. And I say this with this caveat, that right now, with the stress and pressures, we're identifying cracks and things, and we can fix these now. We're more ready for change than maybe we were. Aside from the awful things that come with a pandemic, there are some really great things that we're going to find new skills or new heroes inside of our organizations, and we need to call those out because maybe they weren't being seen and heard. So competency, that people can do what they need to do, and we can skill them up so they can be even better at that people are doing what they said they were going to do. There's an integrity behind it, and that there's a lot of compassion into what it goes on regardless of the circumstances.
God, perfect. Real quick, Lon, I know we have just a couple minutes. Is there like an easy question that we haven't answered yet?
Yes. So I was monitoring the chat. Thank you everyone for submitting questions. Many of the questions somewhat naturally got answered as the panelists were sharing their thoughts. But there's one that I think we haven't specifically talked about and can be answered quickly, which is, how much input are you seeking from your workers that are remote and that you're thinking and considering about bringing back, getting as far as how much input are you getting from them to find out what their comfort level is, and using that information then to build your kind of back to work plan? So
I was just going to say.
looks like Katie's willing to answer that one.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, one thing that we have done is pulse surveys specifically for this situation. And so we just started with how are you doing? And what do you need in terms of resources or things to help you do your job better? And we've been doing that throughout, and that's been really enlightening and very positive. With our business continuity team, one of the things that we found is, thank goodness, we had probably half a step ahead on that survey, and we were already moving in a direction of answering some of those needs and questions. But one thing that came up in the last survey that we haven't really talked about, but it's starting to show, is this idea of burnout and stress. And so with that, you know, since I think we've all read articles and we're having concerns on that. So the pulse surveys have helped us kind of indicate there's been a little bit of a shift where I think people are settled into remote work and this new normal. I think that it's taxing them at a different level now. And so how do we help adjust the pressure or the workload or whatever when we can, so that it's one thing to survey and ask, it's another to say, we heard you. And we've been really cognizant about, after those surveys, is to get back to our workforce and say, we heard you and here's what we're doing. So not just we heard you, but we heard you and here's how we're responding. Here's what we're going to implement or put in place. I think that helps people. It's been great, but it's been great, but a little disheartening, because when you start to see, for instance, we saw indications of burnout and stress, that's painful, right? Some of that we can control, some of we can't. It's what's going on personally for people. But just the idea of asking and responding has made just a huge difference. We're also doing weekly videos. Our CEO is doing weekly videos, and his messages are bigger than just, hey, business is great, here's a new service or that, but he's also kind of humanized. Like, here's what working at home is like for me. Here's what we're doing as a family when we're all at home together. And so I think just humanizing the messages as well, and asking frequently, how are things going? What do you need from us? And then responding.
Yes. Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Katie. I'm glad that you brought that one up, because that is one I've heard other companies doing and feeling better about getting some of that feedback and engaging their employees. So great question. Thank you, Lana. We are out of time. Wow, the hour flew. First, I want to thank all the panelists for being with us for this hour, sharing us some insights. I want to thank the guests for participating and listening. Haram for being our partners with this. And just a really quick reminder, I know Haram made an opportunity, created an opportunity for everyone that if you participated that CEU, those will be going out via email if for those that had logged in. Also for the video, if you want to watch this again, get some notes from it or share it with someone, it's going to be out on our YouTube channel, and Lana will put that in the chat, that link where that's located. And I know Andrea briefly brought up, we have a trustworthiness assessment. And if that's something that you'd like, that it's a great tool you can use with your team, just email us at info@revelagroup.com. And again, info@revelagroup.com, and we will get that assessment out to you. So I believe that should really, kind of wrap up today. Thank you, you guys, again, so much for your time. Everyone be safe and enjoy this upcoming weekend, the holiday weekend as well. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.